Yeah, what's good, y'all? It's your man, the Bigga P, and here are my thoughts from watching Hopkins-Dawson 2 tonight. It was a interesting fight, interesting night of fights. First, I guess we'll talk about the co-feature, Seth Mitchell versus Chaz Witherspoon. Now, of course, like I said, everyone is thinking that Seth Mitchell is going to be the next savior of heavyweight boxing, at least for the American, and someone who eventually will dethrone the Klitschko's. Well, my opinion is he's he's still a long way. I wouldn't say a long way, but he's still a couple ways from actually doing that. In that first round, the reason why I say that, Fu, is now Chaz Witherspoon. You know, he is chinny. He's a very chinny fighter, and he managed to give Seth Mitchell all types of trouble in the first round. He had him on queer, so he had him wobbling all over the place. And usually, when you get wobbled by someone like Chaz Witherspoon, usually I raise an eyebrow. But to his credit, he weathered the storm. He came back, and then that right hand and left hook, had Chaz once again on Queer Street. That look he has one of the strangest, most graphic displays of of Queer Street, I've ever seen. When someone gets hit, his eyes go all helter skelter. But in the end, but yeah, it wasn't a great performance. It wasn't a good performance. It was just, I guess it was what you call maybe his gut check performance, to see if he can actually handle some type of adversity, which he managed to do. But like I said, he still has, he still needs to stay away from a Klitschko. He's, not for that. I'd say maybe give it take another couple years or whatever. And then afterwards, as for Chaz Witherspoon, I mean, I'm not sure how long he. I mean, pretty much every major fight I see him in, he gets knocked out. He's a nice guy and all, but either that or someone needs to work on his defense a little bit more, maybe and also conditioning too. But yeah, I'll still keep an eye on Seth Mitchell, maybe Deontay Wilder or somebody, somebody else of that nature. Seth Mitchell needs to just get have maybe a couple more fights underneath there, before he goes tackling a higher ranked heavyweight or champion even. Now for the main event, Bernard Hopkins versus Chad Dawson, and it was interesting. It honestly had more action than what I would think it would have for both fighters involved. In the beginning, Bernard was clowning with his usual quote unquote, smart fighting, dirty fighting, whatever you want to call it. I call him, in the forums, his old man goon tactics. But he was effective at first. And of course, I laughed too when he said, "Yeah, that cut was an accidental headbutt." There was nothing accidental about that headbutt. Bernard knew what he was doing, but I was fearing that cut would actually cause the fight to be stopped. And I was thinking to myself, man, this would be. I mean, this pay-per-view, people would be pissed. But all the props in the world to Chad's cut man for actually keeping that cut in order. And then, Chad slowly was able to figure out Bernard's little style and was using his physical gifts, his reach, his jab, his strength, and his youth to actually slowly but surely, turn the tide. And of course, as Bernard started fading, even though Nazim was telling him that, Chad was fading, Chad, really went, at least the last 3 rounds went to actually try to finish the fight while Bernard was doing his best impression of John Ruiz. Um, and then once you get to the scorecards, I mean, I find it odd that two judges would score the fight both 117, 111, and then the lone judge scores the fight 114 even. That majority decision is bullshit. It's some absolute bullshit. I raised an eye at that too. But at least in this particular case, scores be damned, the right fighter did win the fight. Um, you know, I also another thing to him. I thought Bernard should at least given some sort of interview after that instead of just going out of the ring. I mean, who knows? I mean, at least explain fights or give props or say what he needed to say because I was more interested to see what he actually what he had to say about the fight. Now as for Chad, yeah, he definitely did a good job. I mean, he praised him. He mentioned the dirty fighting, but the one thing I did not like was the fact that when asked who he wanted to face next, he immediately, he called out Andre Ward. Andre Ward is a super middle. He is a champion in a division below the light heavyweights. Why would you call out Andre Ward when you do have other fighters in there? Namely, I want him to say, mention Pascal again or Cloud, because those two are facing each other off, I think later on this year or so. And say he wants the winner of that. And that's what I think he should spend some time, unify his belts, and then, see what's good with the fight with Andre Ward. Andre Ward has his own business. But to me, I just didn't like. That was the one thing I didn't like. Don't call out Andre Ward just because he's a money fight. I mean, you have fighters in your division. Fight them first. Clear out your division. I mean, eventually the time will be right. If Andre keeps up his ways, and he cleans out super middles, and then Chad is the last man standing, and he's unified the belts. Then I'm all for it. But don't call Andre out. Immediately when you have viable contenders in your division. I mean, that's pretty much all that is. And then, so yeah, that's pretty much my whole thoughts on the fight. It was a good fight, and yeah, and I will definitely see you next week. For Mayweather Cotto. That guaranteed. I'm probably gonna be sauced out of my mind. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be at somebody's fight party. And it should be a good time. All right, until then, have a good night, y'all. Peace.